I've been struggling with this for months now, and I'm hoping sharing this might help me make sense of everything. I've been married to my wife, Sarah, for 7 years, and we have a 5-year-old son together. At the start, our marriage was full of love, and we were both excited about building a family and growing together. But somewhere along the way, things began to unravel, and I didn't even see it coming. I'll try to be as honest as I can in explaining what happened, but it's hard because there's a lot of shame involved. At some point, I feel like I should have left, but I stayed, hoping things would change, wash out. Sarah and I got married young. I was 24 and she was 23. We were both excited about our future, and I worked hard to make sure we had a good home, a decent income, and a happy family. But early on in our marriage, Sarah began to drift. She was never really someone who liked being at home or doing household chores. At first, I brushed it off because I figured, hey, maybe she's just tired or we're still adjusting to married life. But over time, it became more evident that she wasn't interested in taking care of our home. She wouldn't cook, she wouldn't clean, and if I asked her to help with anything, she would get defensive. At first, I thought it was just a phase, but then it got worse. As the months went by, Sarah started going out more and more. She would go out with her friends to bars and clubs, sometimes even leaving our son with me on weekends, while she went out all night. She would come back late, often drunk, and leave me to deal with the consequences. I'm not one to complain much, but this started to weigh heavily on me. I was working full-time, taking care of the house, and taking care of our son. And when I asked her why she couldn't cook dinner or even do something simple like make sure our son had his school clothes ready, she would snap at me or tell me I was being controlling. It became a routine where I felt completely disrespected. It all came to a head one night. It was a Friday, and Sarah was out at a party with her friends again. I had just finished a long shift at work, came home, and started making dinner. Our son was watching TV in the living room, and I was so exhausted from everything that I almost didn't even feel like eating. But then, I thought, at least I can give our son a decent meal. I was juggling cooking, cleaning, and trying to keep my son entertained when, suddenly, I realized that Sarah had been gone far longer than usual. When I called her, she told me she was at a bar and would be home soon. By this point, I'd gotten used to it, but that night, I felt something inside me snap. I was tired. I was really tired. I put our son to bed around 10 p.m. and went to the kitchen to clean up the mess it made while cooking. That's when I got a call from her. She was crying on the other end. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to do this." I felt a wave of dread rush over me, but before I could even ask her what had happened, she explained that she had just gotten into a car accident. She had been drinking, and while on her way back home, she had swerved and crashed into a guardrail. She wasn't seriously hurt, but it could have been much worse. She was lucky. That moment hit me hard. And not just because of the accident itself. The realization that she wasn't just neglecting me and our son, she was risking everything, including her own life and the well-being of our family, was crushing. When Sarah came home that night, I was still in shock. She was shaken up, but I was so angry. All those nights she'd left me to pick up the pieces, and now she'd almost taken everything from us. I tried to talk to her, but she was defensive, blaming the accident on bad luck and the stresses of life. But something inside me had changed. I couldn't keep going down this path. Our son needed a stable home, and I didn't know if I could continue with someone who wasn't taking our family seriously. Then came the worst moment of all. A few days after the accident, I had to go on a business trip for a few days. I didn't want to leave, but it was for work. When I came back, the house felt different. Sarah wasn't there, and I thought maybe she'd gone out again. But then I checked her phone and saw messages from her friends saying that she'd been partying while I was away. She had spent the entire time getting drunk and doing who knows what. When I got home, I found our son in his room, alone. I immediately started looking for Sarah, but then I noticed something. I hadn't heard our son's voice for a while. I went into his room and saw him lying in bed, lifeless. He had choked on something while eating, and because Sarah wasn't there to watch him, it had been too late by the time I returned. The grief that consumed me was unimaginable. The loss of our son shattered everything. Sarah finally realized the extent of her negligence. She couldn't hide from the truth anymore. She blamed herself, and for the first time in our marriage, I saw genuine remorse in her eyes. She apologized again and again, but I knew nothing would bring our son back. That was the